This week on Profile, Brock Wagner, CEO and founder, St. Arnold's Brewery. What's a typical Brock Wagner day?
Most days I start the day, take my kids to school. And after that, it can go any number of places. You know, being a small business owner, there's not really a standard average day. It turns into something new every single day, which is one of the most fun parts of the business is it's constantly new challenges.
When did you know that beer making was going to become your full-time job?
A friend of mine introduced me to homebrewing. This is great. You can just make whatever you want. And it's fresh, and it's delicious. And most of it was delicious. You know, can't say 100% of it was. But it was just a hobby. And I went off, had a career in investment banking. Always knew that I wanted to have my own company. But I thought what I really want to do, though, is make lots of money. Because I was coming out of college, and that was just sort of what the mindset in the 80s was. And going into investment banking certainly didn't discourage that kind of thinking. What I discovered was after several years in investment banking was that making money was not what got me going. I mean, does not get me out of bed in the morning. I watched it just kind of corrupt value systems and a lot of the issues that we've seen in the economy today. I mean, it really goes back to the root of people putting just making money above everything else. So I came to the realization that I still wanted to have my own company. It was just something I've wanted to do since I was very young. But I started shifting my thinking about what it was that I really wanted to do. And it became less about how do I make money, and I started to think, what do I enjoy? What am I passionate about? So I started thinking, well, what do I love? It's like, well, beer. And it was funny. I thought about the concept years ago, like right when I was first out of college, probably sitting at the Ginger Man having a beer. Wouldn't it be a great idea to open a brewery? I was like, I can't make money at it. So I discounted it. Now I came back to it and went, that is what I want to do. And also because I would bounce these crazy entrepreneurial ideas off of my friends, family, and people would look at me like I was nuts all the time. And I told them, what do you think about me opening a brewery? And I was kind of waiting for my pushback, nah, don't do that. Instead it was, that's a great idea, you should do that. And I started getting worried the more people, everybody seemed to say, yeah, you ought to do that. It's like, come on, I need a little devil's advocate here. Thanksgiving of '92 was when the seed first really took root seriously in my head. And it was January of '93 when I pulled the ripcord and jumped and never looked back.
And from that point in January of '93 to the time when the first bottle of St. Arnold's beer came off the line, how long did that take?
It was a year and a half between quitting the job, and in our case it was a keg was the first thing to come off the line. Okay. Our bottling line was still in pieces at that point. It was supposed to be running, but that's a whole other story. I spent about 6 months just doing nothing but research, calling breweries, visiting breweries, calling suppliers, basically doing all the research so I could put together a business plan, because I figured that if we were going to succeed, we had to have a really strong business plan. That summer was when we finally got to the point of writing the prospectus and going out to investors. My partner and I, we put in the majority of the money in the business, but we still needed to raise a little less than half of the rest of the capital for it. And that was sort of an interesting process also, because we started the process trying to get the first person to invest. Well, my dad offered to invest. That was the easy one. But after that, it was kind of slow going, trying to get some people interested. Nobody was really biting. I'd put together 100 selling memorandums and sent them around to people. And lots of questions, lots of interest, but just no takers. And then it's like something clicked one day, and we got a couple of investors in, and then it was like a snowball. It's like once people found out that other people were investing, at the end of the day, we had to shut it down because we ended up raising a little more than we projected, and we didn't want to have too many investors and too much money, just what we needed.
Now, how long have you been in Houston?
Well, I moved here in 1983 to go to college. So I went to Rice. After graduating from Rice in '87, I looked at going other places. The best job I got was here in Houston, and I had really come to like Houston. And the other thing that I had realized after living, I grew up in Cincinnati and in Brussels, Belgium. After living in Houston for several years, I realized I really hated the cold. I like to be able to wear shorts pretty much most of the year, and usually I am in shorts. I got dressed up for you today. I'm wearing jeans. I think Houston is a great city. It's such a big melting pot. Everybody's, I think we've got the best sort of interspersing of cultures and ethnicities of any city I know of.
What does it feel like to see your beer, to go catch a Major League ball game, go watch the Astros, and your beer is being sold at the ballpark?
First day we were open, and we saw people drinking our beer. I remember going to the Ginger Man for our opening day party, and I was struck by a couple things. One of them was that very first batch of beer. It's like when you bake a cake, if you're baking a little cake, and then you decide you want to bake the 100-pound cake, the recipe, it's not linear. It doesn't go up. You don't just multiply from a pound to 100 pounds. You don't just multiply everything by 100. Brewing is the same way. Malt is fairly linear. Hops are not. We scaled back, but we didn't scale back nearly enough, and we ended up with the very first batch of amber was way more bitter than it was supposed to be. So I saw a lot of people that first night drinking half of their beers and politely setting it down and kind of moving away. So that was one of the things I noticed that night. But the other thing was to actually finally see people, paying to buy something and enjoying something that I had made. And that was really cool. Now when I go to the ballpark and I see it, I guess there's a couple things. Psychically, it's kind of warming. I don't get that just big euphoria that you might think that when you walk in and you see it someplace. And part of that is because I'm always sitting there analyzing. Instead of just going, wow, it's here, isn't that cool? I'm going, well, why are we on the tap that's on the side instead of the tap that's on front? Because that would be better. And that tap marker is not screwed on exactly straight. Well, that person just walked up and bought another beer. Why didn't he buy my beer? Yeah, that kind of stuff is constantly going through my head, which probably drives some of the people around me nuts. Hopefully all is going well with the bottling run.
Oh, thank you.